Meow meow. Hello.
State of
I'm listening to stuff that I can learn something from.
charge of cell 4 so the other cells can catch up. Even though the cell matching of the Dynas battery was good, I saw a recurring problem. After charging and discharging the battery several times at high C rates, one battery cell had a higher voltage than the others, and normally the BMS should have corrected this imbalance. Both batteries use passive balancing. The BMS bleeds the high cells through resistors, which will create heat. On the water BMS, there are 4 resistors in parallel. Each resistor is 62 ohms and it makes for an equivalent of 15.5 ohms. If we calculate it, we get a balancing current of 220 milliamps. The Dynas only has a 101 ohm resistor per cell, and if we calculate that balancing current at the starting voltage, we get 35 milliamps. And the datasheet confirms this. So the water has roughly 6 times the balancing current than the Dynas. However, more balancing equals more heat. On the water BMS, the resistor area hit 60 degrees Celsius while balancing. That's normal for bleed resistors. The Dynas battery ran cooler at 30 degrees Celsius. Lower balancing current isn't automatically bad. The question is, can it keep up in real-world conditions? So I created a test that mimics real drift. For example, you haven't charged your battery to 100% in a while. I created the same imbalance in both of these batteries. I charged all the cells with 3.65 volts and connected my capacitor tester to one cell and discharge it with 0.5 amp hours.
Meow.
Then I let the packs recover
Meow,
using
meow.
their own BMS.
Meow meow.
Balancing only happens above a balanced start voltage. For the water, this is programmed at 3.3 volts per cell, which is quite early.
Oh, sorry
And
guys.
for the Dynas, this is set to 3.525 volts, which is very late in the charge cycle. In my opinion, I think 3.4 volts is ideal. And this is how I conduct the tests. I charge the battery until high voltage cutoff. I let it rest so the balancing can work. And when the cell voltage drops under the balanced start voltage, I charge it again. And then repeat the whole process until the imbalance disappeared. And here are the results. The water recovered after 3 of these cycles, and the Dynas recovered after 12 of these cycles. And that makes sense. The Dynas battery only balances above 3.525 volts per cell, and it only bleeds looks like this. The voltage
got
rises
disconnected.
to 14.2 volts, and the current tapers down. And when you have a situation like this, where the current goes down immediately, and the voltage doesn't reach 14.2 volts, that means you have a high voltage cutoff. So the BMS has detected a cell over voltage and cut off the charging current immediately, which you can see right here. So what can you do if this happens to you? First, increase absorption time, which gives more time for the balancer to work. Secondly, charge at a lower current near the top, so you don't hit the overvoltage protection. And lastly, repeat the charge and rest cycle frequently to let it top balance, just like I did in my experiment. Another lesser known problem is that a hard cutoff from the high charging current to zero immediately will trigger a high voltage. This spike can cause the inverter to trip or even damage it. My recommendation is to look at how your battery behaves when it's nearly full. If the current drops from max amps to 0 immediately, you have an imbalance issue. Let me know what you think about this video in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.
Even so, the tally is rather impressive.
For all his bluster,
What's this?
do not waste my time.
Did you know science says skin concerns could be caused by germs?
Use new Safeguard Germ Protect.
Get the top restaurants in town delivered straight to your door. Download the Food Panda app and order food you love.
Food Panda?
In this video, I will show you why solar batteries fail early and how you can make yours last much longer. Now, the first reason is deep discharge. All batteries have their limits. We have what is called cut-off voltage or low voltage disconnect. Then we also have percentage. When you are deeply discharging your batteries every day, that battery will die fast, the cells will become weak, the batteries will not last as it is supposed to last because you are deeply discharging it every day. Now we have the lithium batteries and also we have the lead acid batteries. For lead acid batteries, the recommended depth of discharge is 50% DOD. Then for lithium batteries, some manufacturers recommend 80% DOD, some 90%, so some 95%. So the basic rule there is for lithium batteries, if you're discharging it, once it gets to 20 or 30%, the batteries should shut down. Then for lead acid batteries, if it discharges to 50%, the inverter should shut down. Now you can do this by setting your low voltage disconnect from the inverter. We have cut-off voltage or low voltage disconnect. Now for a 12 volt battery, let's say you're using a lead acid battery, that gel AGM or flooded battery. We have use 12.2 volts, 12.2 volts. That is, your cut-off voltage should be 12.2 volts. But most times you find out that you are discharging the battery down to 10 volts. If you're discharging your battery down to this level every day, you're killing the cells of that lead acid battery. If you're using a lithium battery, set the cutoff at 20%. Once it gets to 20% or 30%, the inverter will shut down. These will help in prolonging the lifespan of your battery. The next one is overcharging or incorrect charge settings. If you look at your inverter, whether the hybrid inverter or the non-hybrid inverter, when you go to the settings, you always see something like charge voltage, you will see charge current. Now you need to look at the specifications of your battery. The manufacturers recommended charging current and charging voltage. So you have to impute these parameters correctly on the inverter so that once the inverter is charging the battery or if the charge controller is charging the battery, once the current exceeds that value from the solar panels, it will limit that current. For example, you set your lithium battery to charge at 50 amps. So once it cannot exceed that 50 amps. Why? Because you want to stay within the manufacturer's recommended, specification. If a battery charging voltage for a 12.8 volt lithium battery is 14.4 volts or 14.2 volts, and you are using 15 volts to charge that battery, you damage those cells very fast. Then at times the charging current also, maximum charging current, you'll see 50 amps, 20 amps or 30 amps. Do your settings on the inverter or a charge controller to correspond with the manufacturer's charging specifications. The next one is low quality or mismatched cells. There are a lot of low quality lithium batteries or lithium cells in the market today. So when you buy low quality lithium cells, when you buy low quality batteries, those batteries will not last long. They may perform very well for 2-3 months, and after that the battery will start degrading. The cells will start failing. If you charge it up to 100% at night when you're using it, it will drain very fast, even when you are not connecting heavy appliances or heavy load to the battery. So you have to be very sure where you're getting your lithium battery from. Buy your lithium battery or your lead acid battery if you want to use the tubular battery for small systems. Maybe just 1 or maximum 2 batteries for tubular batteries. Buy them from the company's distributor or dealer in your country, so that you will not fall into wrong hands. There are a lot of solar fraud happening in our countries today. So if you fail to take this into consideration, you will fall into wrong hands, and they will sell you fake or mismatched cells. They will sell you low quality cells, and these low quality cells will not give you good backup. The next one is overloading your inverter. When you overload your inverter, the inverter is dragging or taking that its power from the battery. So as you are loading the battery, the inverter is drawing or taking more current from the battery. And most times the inverter will take more than the recommended discharge current from the battery, because the inverter wants to meet up with the loads that you have connected to it. So don't overload your inverter. Your load should be according to the size of the inverter and also according to the capacity of your battery. If you want to connect more loads to your battery bank, you should make sure that your battery bank is able to carry those loads. So you have to either double your battery bank, or during system sizing, you size your battery bank accurately. You size your battery bank very well so that it will be able to power your loads efficiently without the inverter shutting down. Because as the inverter is pulling that high current or much current from the battery, the cells will become hot. At times, if you touch the terminals of the battery, they will become hot, and those things will make the battery to fail very fast. Another factor is insufficient solar panels. When you don't have solar panels sufficient enough to charge the battery during the day when the sun is available, that battery will never be fully charged. So at times it may charge to 50 or 60%, and at night your loads, your usage, you consume everything that the solar panels generated during the day. So before you know, the battery will just shut down. So if you are connecting solar panels to a battery bank, make sure those solar panels are enough to sufficiently charge the battery during the day, depending on the available sunshine that you have. Another thing, if you are powering your load during the day while the solar panels are charging the battery, you need to appropriately size your solar panels so that they will efficiently charge your battery and also be able to power your loads without any issue. As they are powering the loads, the excess, the solar panels are using it, sending the excess power to your battery. But when the solar panels are not sufficient enough and you're using some appliances during the day, the solar panels will use that power to power your loads and nothing will be left to store in the battery. So at night, you will just have minimal backup. You have minimal energy that is stored in the battery, and the battery will not take you overnight, will not last for long, even when you connect few appliances to that battery bank. Another thing is heat. Batteries don't like heat. If you look at your data sheet or your specification sheet, the manufacturer will always tell you the operating temperature, whether you are charging the battery or discharging your battery. So do not always go against the manufacturer's recommendation. At times you install your inverters, some of them generate a lot of heat. You install them close to the battery. As they are generating that heat is being pushed to the battery. At times the place is not well ventilated. So if it is not ventilated, there will be a lot of heat, and batteries are being affected by high temperature. So with that, as you are repeating it every day, you are degrading the cells and the capacity of that battery. So always install your batteries in a place that is well ventilated, so that there will be good aeration around that battery, so that it will stay within the manufacturer's recommended operating temperature, whether discharging or charging. And the next point is wrong cable size or wrong connections. At times, after connecting the inverter, the charge controller, or whatever to the battery, once in a while, try to shake, the cables that are connected to, the battery. You see that most times they will be, shaking. They are not properly tight. You have to tight them very firm. And at times you're using undersized cables. And when you're using undersized cables, the charge controller is pumping high current to the battery, and the inverter is drawing high current from the battery. Those cables will not be able to withstand that current that is flowing through them. So they will overheat, and at times they will affect the terminals of the batteries, and that can destroy the battery. Also, when the cables are not properly connected, and there will be some sparks, there will be arcing, and that also can cause overheating. So what you should do is you should always properly tighten your battery terminals and use proper sized cables between the battery and the inverter. Then the next one is poor system design. Anytime you poorly design your system, all components will not function well. They will fail. The inverter will fail, the solar panels will fail, the battery will fail, the charge controller will fail, even the cables, all the accessories you connect to the system will always be having issues. Why? Because the system is not properly designed. So before you install your battery, before you buy any solar component, make sure that your system is properly sized. Your system is properly designed. You design your solar panels according to the energy you want to generate or harness from the sun every day. You design your battery bank according to the energy you need to power your loads throughout the night. Whether you're powering air conditions, you're powering refrigerators, you're powering freezers, lights, television, or whatever, your ceiling fan or standing fan, all designs should be correctly done so that your system will be able to power your loads whether in the day or at night when you need the system, so that your components will not fail. So thank you for watching. If you have any question or you have any contribution, please drop it in the comment section. Thank you for watching, and see you in my next video. You have a lovely day.
Become a Shopee VIP member with your first month free. Get daily free shipping, daily 20% off vouchers, 0% interest with SPay later every day. Plus, enjoy exclusive perks every Monday. Become a Shopee VIP member today.
Shopee!
As usually.
Today we're going to talk about lithium iron phosphate batteries and what kills them, misconceptions, and how to ensure that your battery lasts for a very long time. It's very hard to kill these batteries, but if you know how to take care of them, they'll probably last longer than you'll be alive. So first off, a lithium iron phosphate battery is multiple cells in series for a specified nominal voltage, and these cells are managed by a battery management system. It's a small circuit board that sits on top of the cells, and the circuit board ensures that the cells stay happy and that they're managed properly over time. They balance the cells, they will disconnect if it's too cold or too hot, it will disconnect if the terminals are exposed to too high of a voltage, and it will also disconnect if there's no more energy in the cells. And you're at 0% capacity, it will disconnect the loads. Or if you draw too much current from the cells, it will disconnect the loads as well. Or it can have a communication system that talks to your inverter. So if something's wrong with one of your batteries, it will shut down the entire system. And so many other functions, but those are the main functions today with the battery management system for lithium iron phosphate. Now without a battery management system, these batteries could die very easily. If you over discharge them, or you overcharge them, or you charge when they're cold, they can be instantly dead or lose all their capacity very quickly. Now the battery management system for the most part will keep them happy, but you can still kill the batteries. So we're going to talk about 3 ways that can actually kill your batteries even though you still have a battery management system. The first most common one that I've seen so many times is that people will over discharge the cells because they leave the batteries in storage. If you discharge a battery too low and then you stick it in a closet for a couple years or months, it can kill itself for all time. And this is because even though the BMS saw that there was low capacity and it disconnected the loads, there is still a self-discharge rate of the cells, usually about 3% per month. So if you drop down to 10% or 0% or something pretty low, and then you leave it, they will discharge themselves over time until they're below 0%. And that will permanently damage them forever. And this happens all the time, especially for preppers and people that buy these batteries for natural disasters or a grid down situation. If you bought these batteries and you just leave them to sit in your basement or garage, which a lot of people do, you're going to have a self-discharge rate, and you need to keep an eye on those batteries. The most common recommendation is to keep the state of charge at 50%. So every few months you want to plug that battery in and ensure it's at 50%. Now usually the self-discharge rate is 3% per month, but if it's in a hot environment, it can actually raise to 5 or 6%. Now this stuff adds up quickly, especially if you live in the tropics. So again, keep an eye on the state of charge and keep a charger nearby and ensure that you charge it up to 50% every few months. Now this applies to all chemistries of lithium ion battery. So even if you have a Tesla or some other EV, if you over discharge the pack and you let it sit, it can die and kill itself. There's no way to really prevent this besides keeping it charged. If you do over discharge it, either the battery is toast and it will not turn on, or it will try to run, but you'll have very limited capacity. In both situations, you want to get rid of that battery. You could get a shorted cell over time, and it will vent gas and cause a big mess. So ensure that your batteries stay charged. And if you have them in storage, check on them often. Now the next thing that can kill your battery is if your cells are imbalanced, but people approach this in the wrong way. All you need to know to keep your cells balanced is that you need to charge them up to 100% and keep it there every few months. This will trigger the balance circuit in the BMS and will ensure that all the cells are the same voltage. But people take this a step too far and they think that they should charge up to 90% and not trigger the balance circuit, and then they get a bunch of active balancers and they think that their battery will last forever if they do that. That is absolutely false. To balance your battery, all you need to do is charge to 100%, and that's it. Now you would think that this is a very easy thing to avoid, but lots of people try to charge to 80 or 90% because they've seen studies on other lithium-ion variants like NCA or NMC, and they think that they shouldn't charge to 100% so the battery will last a long time. And with lithium iron phosphate, that is completely unnecessary. And for some reason, people think that they know better than the electrical engineers designing these BMS, and they think that they need a high balance current. And again, that is false. Even a very small passive dissipative balancer can manage an EV battery that's 100 kilowatt hours in right size. But what's most important is all the cells need to be at 100% so they can actually balance. Lithium iron phosphate is not NCA or NMC, it is different. The iron phosphate lattice is much stronger, especially at higher voltages. So this increased degradation rate that you guys are so scared about is completely unnecessary. Also, people are scared to drop down to 0% because they're going to hurt their batteries. But again, that is false. With lithium iron phosphate, you can charge to 100% and down to 0 every single day without any issue. Especially for solar, you're charging and discharging at such a low C rate that there's not that much heat that's being generated inside the cell. And as long as your batteries are not exposed to an extreme temperature, they'll be fine for a very long time. Actually, you want to charge and discharge as much as possible today, because something that you're actually fighting with is calendar aging. And that's the natural capacity fade over time of lithium ion batteries. So whether you use them or not, you're gonna lose capacity. But today you have the most capacity that those batteries will ever have, so use it. And charging up to 80% and down to 20%, you're losing 40% of your capacity. And to have a usable capacity to run everything you need, you're gonna have to buy more batteries. So avoid that. Charge to 100%. You will balance the batteries properly so the cells are the perfect voltage, which will increase their longevity, and then discharge it down to 0% and then back up to 100%. There are too many people online that obsess over their cell voltages. They always add these active balancers and they charge up to 80% and they don't realize that they're actually causing damage doing that. So again, very simple. Charge to 100% as often as you can and forget about it. Stop stressing about it and use that battery today for all of the capacity that it has right now. Now the last cause of death is hot ambient temperatures. So if you leave your batteries in a very hot environment and you cycle them very hard every day, you will increase the degradation rate. Typically this never happens if you're using these batteries for solar, because solar is a very low C rate. Typically you'll do 1 cycle per day, and at that rate you're not going to create that much heat in your cell, so you're going to have minimal degradation unless you keep the cells in a hot environment. That will increase calendar aging and capacity fade over time, especially if the battery is at 100%. But it's not that bad. Like here in Las Vegas, we have a test battery that I've made a few videos about, and I keep it in a south-facing corner outside, and our summer out here is over 100 degrees every single day for months. And the degradation last time I checked wasn't that bad. But this is the most common way to lose capacity over time. It's minimal, but it's still present, and you should know about it. The best temperature is 70 degrees, and that's where you get the best performance, and you also get the best longevity. Now, so far we've been talking about the cells and what they like, but usually the cells do not fail. Typically the capacity fade is so minimal, you're not going to notice it. And even if you lose a lot of capacity, you can still safely use the battery. But something that can happen is the BMS can fail, and that's way more common than having a cell fail. So usually it's smart to get a battery that you can swap out the BMS. Usually the cells are just fine. It's very rare to get a bad cell these days. If you want these batteries to last a really long time, I would buy some extra spare BMSs, because it's not if, but when these things will fail. You can use any BMS on any cells that you want if it's the right chemistry and it's programmed correctly. There will be BMS available in the future, but it's smart that for your battery, you have the same exact BMS that it's designed to work with. Now, over time, BMSs are getting better. Before, we would have failures after a couple months. Now, these things are lasting many years, if not decades. And that's because they're designed better. It's better technology, better hardware, and everything's getting better in this sector. But it can still happen, and that's the biggest fault point of a lithium iron phosphate battery, is the BMS. So let's summarize a basic maintenance guide for these batteries. First of all, do not get them too hot, do not get them too cold. Next, charge them up to 100% as often as you can. Next, if you put them into storage, you need to check them often, have a charger nearby, and keep them charged up to 50% state of charge. If you follow those rules and you have a battery management system with basic protection features, it is nearly impossible to kill these things, unless you have a problem with the BMS or if you have a bad cell, which again is very, very rare these days. Now for the last point is I want you guys to use your batteries. Do not be scared to use your batteries. Whether you use your batteries or not, the natural capacity fade over time will happen regardless. So So you want to use as much of that energy that it can store right now. And even if you do get capacity fade over time, who cares? It is a small percentage of your total capacity, and you can still use it after that. And they're getting cheaper and cheaper every single day. So use those batteries as much as you can today, and they'll handle it just fine. You don't have to worry about it. As long as you follow my rules, you'll be set. Keep it charged. Really, that's the number one thing, is you need to keep it charged. Everything else really doesn't matter. Keep it charged and keep it in a cool environment and you'll be set. So I hope you guys like this video and I hope it helps you out. Please let me know if you have any questions down in the comment section below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.
GG. GG.
So this should be the final video for lithium iron phosphate longevity. Yesterday, people were commenting saying, is 0% state of charge 0 volts? And then they asked, what is 100% state of charge? What voltage is that? And how do you effectively balance these batteries? And I never covered that, and it's actually a really cool discussion. And balancing some batteries, especially budget batteries, can be quite difficult. It can take weeks. So in this video, I'm going to cover my voltage recommendations, what you should set your absorption and your float to, and I'll cover the voltage that you should charge to if you're capacity testing individual cells. Also, depending on what type of BMS you have, it will change how you balance the battery. If you have closed loop communication and it can manage the charge current while it's balancing, it will actually balance faster compared to some cheap 12-volt budget battery that you have to leave on a power supply for a couple days or weeks for those cells to actually balance. So first, let's talk about what 100% is and what 0% is. I had comments last night where people thought that I was saying that 0% means 0 volts. That is absolutely false. Now, in most BMSs, it will have a high voltage disconnect and a low voltage disconnect. Usually the high voltage disconnect is set to 3.65 volts and the low voltage disconnect is 2.5 volts. Some BMSs are different, but that's typically what you're gonna get. And with those voltages, you should get the full capacity for your cell. Now, typically when you charge all the cells up, one of the cells will hit high voltage disconnect and it will disconnect the chargers. And then the voltage of the highest voltage cell will slowly settle. It will go from 3.65 volts down to about 3.32, and then it will reconnect the chargers and it will try to charge again. And during that time of charging, it is balancing it. So the highest voltage cell is going to be connected to a resistor and it's going to discharge that individual cell until it matches the other cells. Now, just because you have your absorption set to 14.5 volts for a 12-volt battery, for example, does not mean that it's fully charged when you hit 14.5 volts. The other cells can still be lagging behind, especially in a solar system that's not charged to 100% that often or for very long. It will keep trying to balance, and if you keep trying to charge it, it will balance over time. But sometimes this can take a long time, especially for cheap 12-volt batteries. Sometimes it can take a few weeks of cycling, but you'll notice that over time it will get more and more balanced. Now, this is not true for like a Power Pro battery with closed loop communication. In those systems, once it knows that it's at a higher state of charge, it will reduce the charge current so that it doesn't hit that high voltage disconnect, and it will balance and it will keep balancing non-stop. In those systems, it knows what the battery needs and it will supply it, and that's also the same for server rack batteries. With those batteries typically charged to 100%, and you'll watch it be stuck at 99%, and then it will hit 100% once the voltages of all the cells go up, and they're actually at 100% imbalanced, and then you're done. But with cheaper batteries, you need to keep cycling it to 100%. It can be quite difficult sometimes. If you don't want to wait, or if your 14.5 volt charger keeps hitting that high voltage disconnect, and you're waiting for it to cycle itself and balance slowly over time, you can use one of these. You can watch the current slowly drop as you get to a higher and higher state of charge. But if you get a disconnect, then the balancing is not occurring. So what you can do with this is you can lower the current down to whatever the balance current is, and it will slowly rise the voltage to 14.5, and then you'll get a disconnect. When I do my capacity test, I use this so I know exactly what the state of charge really is. I can see exactly how much current is going in there. Typically it will drop pretty quickly, and then you'll see the balance current, and then you'll get the high voltage disconnect. But this allows me to control it. If I'm at 14.2 volts and I hit high voltage disconnect, that means that I need to balance the cells. The cells are matched nicely. I hit 14.5 volts and then it just cuts off, then I know that it's a higher quality pack and they actually match the cells properly. Also realize that if you have a bad cell, no amount of balancing is going to fix that. Even if you have an active balancer, and I tested this years ago, even with a high balance current, it's not going to keep up with the cycling. So again, you need to start with good cells that are matched and a good BMS. Charged to 100% so they're actually balanced, and then you are good to go. Now, something I didn't mention in my past videos is current sharing. Let's say you have 10 12-volt batteries connected in parallel, and let's say you don't have a bus bar with equal length conductors going to each battery. What's going to happen is some of the batteries are going to charge and balance before the other ones will, and this happens a lot. People buy cheap, small 12-volt batteries, they put tons of them together in parallel, and then they use it in a solar system, and they're not charging to 100%. If you charge to 100%, like 14.5 volts for a 12-volt battery, and you hold it there, or you cycle there every single day, eventually they'll all be balanced. So for most people in that situation, you want to charge to 100% once a day if you can, so that you can balance all of those packs. Now you can check this with a voltmeter. Check the voltage of all of your batteries when you're at 100%. If two of them are at 14.5 volts and the rest are at 13.3 volts, you have a problem. You either need to rewire that system, or you need to do more balance cycles and hit a higher voltage. Once they're all at 14.5 volts, then you know that you're actually balanced. Now once your batteries are balanced, they will not go out of balance for a very long time actually. I deleted most of my videos, but I used to run these cells without a BMS. I actually would bottom balance it. The cell drift over time, the voltage differential was not that bad. Sometimes I could last 6 months until I had to balance again. But it depends on how you use it. If you have high C-rate charge or discharge rates, or if one side of your battery bank is colder than the other side, or one side's hotter than the other side is a better way to put it, you can get more cell drift over time. And if it's winter and you're not charging to 100% because you don't have that much solar, you're not balancing those cells. So I just tell people now, charge to 100%. You need to balance the cells. People will have such a severe imbalance that they're not pulling full capacity. Now over time that will affect your battery. Now when it comes to the cycling degradation, it's not that bad. I want people to read the studies on calendar aging and the rates of degradation over time. Because whether you cycle the battery or you don't cycle the battery, you're still getting degradation. And for solar specifically, you want to use that battery as much as you can today. So it's best to aim to charge to 100% no matter what. Even if you're not, I want you guys to try because you need to balance your packs. And then don't be scared to go to 0%. Use the battery. That capacity is there today. Now a lot of you guys don't need to buy this. You can just charge to 100% and your cells will be balanced. But keep in mind, the current sharing and everything else, it's a problem. You need to charge these things often to get a good balance, especially if you have cheap batteries with mismatched cells. And again, if you have a bad cell, no amount of balancing is going to fix that. You're going to have reduced capacity, reduced performance, and the other cells will be affected. Now 0% state of charge depends on what type of BMS you're using. Typically you're going to get a low voltage disconnect at 2.5 volts. But if you're pulling full capacity and your cells are above that voltage, you can call that 0%. What matters most is what is 100%. That's why BMSs are programmed to reset their 100% state of charge meter with their coulometer that's built in the shunt when the cells in the pack reach a certain voltage. Now for solar systems specifically, you need backup power. If you have no backup capacity, and you have one rainy day, and your whole system shuts down, then you are not using your batteries. Some people are trying to discharge to 20% because they want their battery to last a very long time. And honestly, with that lower voltage, if you're not going below 2.5 volts per cell, especially if you're not holding there for a long time and you're just cycling it daily, it is fine to do that. And it's fine to go to 0% state of charge. And again, that is not 0 volts. It's 2.5 volts per cell. Now, some comments made a very good point. They said, what about uninterruptible power supplies for backup? If the grid were down, if I have no solar power system, I'm not cycling every day, and I'm just using this battery for backup. In most recommendations, and also my recommendation, is 50% state of charge for storage. But you need to use these batteries. So what are you going to do? Are you going to charge to 90%? How bad is the imbalancing over time? And technically, you could charge to a lower state of charge, but this is a backup battery. You need to use it. If the grid goes down, you need as much energy as possible. And the degradation at high states of charge at lower temperatures is not that bad. I actually posted that study in the last video. And I've also mentioned this in a lot of past videos if you want to watch those as well. And so for me, I would keep that thing at 100%. I'd make sure the cells were balanced, and I would hold it there. You will get more degradation, but like I keep saying, it's not that bad. Unless you keep it in a hot environment. And in all the studies, it says the same thing. Avoid hot temperatures. Batteries don't like that. If you're in a cool environment and you're cycling it slowly or you have it as a backup system, that battery is not getting hot. Now, all of these recommendations change if we're not using lithium iron phosphate. Now, something I've noticed over time is what are people actually doing with these batteries and what actually kills them. Typically, like I said, people put them into storage, they'll be at a low state of charge, and you let them sit for like 2 years. Then it drops itself below 0, and then you have permanent damage. Next, I've seen people have massive imbalances on their battery, especially with cheap batteries, and especially with 12-volt batteries, and with current sharing problems with how they're wiring them up. So for all of these instances, the best thing to tell people is to charge the freaking thing to 100%. You're not even at 100% for very long with the solar system every single day anyways. It can take weeks, sometimes months, to properly balance that thing. And during winter, they're probably not balancing it at all, really. So charging to 100% and not being scared of 0% will give you the best bang for your buck, and your batteries will not die. The only way I've been able to kill one of these batteries is over discharging it from storage. Everything else is a joke. The degradation from cycling alone with solar at this speed rate is very minimal, especially at high temperatures. If you have a hot ambient temperature environment, the rate of degradation will actually be noticeable. All the other degradation factors are really not very noticeable at all for most of you. And if you don't believe me, do a capacity test of your system and it over 20 years. Also, the initial degradation can be extreme for the first couple years, even though it's not even that bad at all and you'll probably still pull full capacity, but typically it will flatline. And like I've said before, even if you're at 80 or 60, %70 capacity in 20 or 30 years, you can still safely use the battery. But you want to keep them balanced so that they age at the same rate. You want all the cells to be stressed with the same amount of voltage, the same amount of cycling, at the same state of charge, and the same temperature. If you have a large battery bank, and one side is next to a heat source, or one side is next to freezing cold temperatures and like a cold concrete wall, the aging will not be the same across your whole battery. You want to cycle them together at the same temperature, same state of charge, same balance, everything. Also, think about how much money you're spending on these batteries, and how much capacity you're losing if you're modifying your cycle thresholds. If electricity is expensive, and you're limiting your capacity today for hopes of having a higher cycle life to 80% degradation in the future, typically the math absolutely does not work out. Typically you're better off using the battery as much as possible today, especially if it's saving on your electric bill. And you can calculate that payback period. Now, what my videos want to show people is some general guidelines that everybody can follow so your battery works for a very long time. I look at the forum, I see the problems people have, I see how people destroy their batteries, and I see how I destroyed my batteries. And then I consider the C rate that we're charging and discharging at, and that if you're using it for solar, you're hanging around 50% state charge. But people are not charging their batteries enough. First, because they're scared to, and they see, oh, I'm going to get increased degradation. But it's not that bad, and your system's not at 100% for long enough for it to matter, for you to even notice, to have a statistically significant data point to even notice. And these battery cells are not being tested at 15 or 20 years. What they're doing is they're cycling it quickly in the laboratory at a 1C rate. If you are using solar, it's 0.1, maybe 0.2 C at most. And if it's above that, that means you did not size your system properly. That means you have zero backup power for a rainy day. That means that whatever you have for that day, let's say you charge up in 5 hours at a 0.2 C rate, and that was from 0. That means that your battery is too small. That means that if you're going all the way to 0 every single night, and you're charging up in 5 hours, your battery is too small for your solar system. In this situation, if you get one cloudy day, you're not going to have power for the whole day. That just does not make sense. Typically, these batteries are cycled at 0.1 C, and with that rate, there's not that much heat generation. The degradation from cycling is very minimal.
Anyway, I had fun last night with my student. We just had a free conversation without any teaching material. You know, we didn't have any we didn't use any guide. Just that's what they wanted. No lesson guide, no reading material. Yeah, it was very nice. I hope I get more students like that who don't request for any material. That's nice. You know, of course, I can't tell you about it. I can tell you about them. I ain't telling you nothing. Just kidding.
Typically, the calendar aging is going to degrade the battery faster, especially at higher temperatures, especially in the tropics or in the desert. Where the batteries are high temperatures, that's going to degrade it before the cycling will. Both degrade it, and other things degrade it, but you have to look at the rate of degradation here. Now, to end this video, I'm going to show you what my voltage recommendations are for different voltage batteries. So
how many months have I been using this? 6. So let's say November, December, so 8. You know, I can consider myself as, I can consider my battery as having served its worth. You know, I think it has saved. I think that the money I paid for it has already gone back. You know, I'm not very sure though. I'm just estimating.
For a 12 volt 4S configuration lithium iron phosphate battery, you want to set the absorption of your solar charge controller to 14.5 volts. The float should be 13.6 volts. And then the inverter cutoff, where your inverter will turn off and disconnect loads before the BMS shuts down. If you don't have the closed loop communication, it should be 10.7 volts to 12 volts. And the BMS disconnect voltage is going to be 10 volts. That's 2.5 volts per cell. With 4 cells for 2.5 volts, that's 10 volts. But the inverter cutoff needs to be slightly higher than that. Unless you have closed loop communication, then it will know exactly what 0% is and disconnect it down there. And I would set it to 0%. If you can't do it down there, and the BMS gets all crazy, set it to 1%. But if you don't have that and you're running large loads and you have a massive voltage drop, you have current balancing issues, you have to mess with these numbers a little bit. If you sized your battery properly, you shouldn't have any issue dropping it down to like 10.2 or 10.7. It should be fine. If your loads are small, you can set that thing to like 10.2 volts and it will disconnect before the BMS does. But you need to test it with your loads. Now for 24 volts, absorption 29 volts, float 27.2, and the inverter cutoff 21.4 to 24 volts. Now for a 48 volt battery, the absorption should be set to 58 volts, and the float should be set to 54.4 volts, and the inverter cutoff 42.8 to 48 volts. 48 volts is very conservative, but for some of you guys that works. That's like 5 to maybe 7% state of charge. Especially in a large system with lots of parallel batteries with different types of BMSs. Sometimes most of the batteries are okay, and then it trips only one of the batteries. Something else I forgot to mention is sometimes one battery will disconnect from the pack and you won't even know it. This is rare, but if you set it to 48 volts for your disconnect, you're not going to trigger any BMSs. And sometimes there's really weird BMSs and they programmed it very strangely. You've seen that a lot on this channel. But don't be scared to go to 42.8 or even 40 volts if you have closed loop communication. That's totally fine. If you have a solar system, the next day it's going to charge itself back up. You're not going to be hanging around low state of charge for very long. The only time you're going to be doing that is during winter. And if you're charging up an individual cell to 100%, I've always recommended 3.625 volts. And then the low voltage disconnect is 2.5 volts. If you're doing a test with a CV4, you're not using the BMS. Now, one interesting recommendation is Victron saying 14.2 volts for those thin cells.
Help, I'm on the ledge, help.
Electrolyte, and those batteries that they use for a Victron system
Help
are
me.
externally managed. But their balancing circuit is
Thanks,
on the
bro.
cells. And all the voltage sensing leads go out with the rest of the system so it can manage the path externally. And in that system, you should be able to get full capacity, it just might take more time to reach it. But you still need to charge
Yeah, they were very nice.
You know that they're balanced.
They were very nice.
But it happens faster.
You know, next time, and you know, I'm very happy that my first student didn't want any reading material. You know, we just had a free conversation, and it kind of made it easy for me because we didn't have to abide by something. But of course, next time I want my next student to make use of a material. Because you know, material is what I train for. I train to have a guide. I didn't train to have free conversations. Oh, of course, we did free conversations, but there was still an assessment. There was still there are still criteria for assessment, and I did those. And I gave them a feedback. Well, speaking of lesson materials, of course, for lesson materials there are steps. So, you know, it's possible to run out of time. Maybe if the student really cannot follow, or if they have an attitude. And you know, of course, my student was Japanese. And you know, because this is my only work for now, I've also been checking on social media you know, about groups of tutors. So I think it was earlier today or last night when I saw, a Filipino teacher. They actually posted like a screenshot of their conference or meeting with the student. It says there Saudi Arabia. So supposedly the student was from Saudi Arabia, and the student was freaking holding a goat. The student was holding a goat on camera, and the teacher didn't really believe her student when the student told her that they had a goat for a pet. Because it's unusual. Especially in our culture. when we see something as livestock, it's only livestock. You never kinda see it as a pet. So, yep. If you told a Filipino person that you have a cow or a pig as a pet, they'd find it weird. No, because those are livestock. But of course, we do have exotic pets here. Some people have, snakes, stingrays. I've seen a freaking lionfish. Lionfish are venomous. If you touch their spines. Of course, some people have serpents, snakes, tarantulas. I've seen a family with a monkey. Yeah. But I know that back in the 90s, back in the early 2000s, I think I heard about Paris Hilton having a pot-bellied pig. So uh, so maybe Paris Hilton was the reason why I don't find it weird for people to have pets that are not usually, thought of as pets. I wonder how old I was back then. So yeah, I know that a lot of people see Paris Hilton as freaking trash. But that's one good thing I learned from her, You can have unusual pets.
for very long. So again, try to cycle up to 100% as much as you can. Now this does not mean keep it at 100% for all time. Like I said, if you put them into storage, keep them at 50%. Personally, on my property, because the only way I've actually killed batteries is from over discharging them from storage because I have so many of them, I leave them at 100%. And then I capacity test them and I do all sorts of things. And guess what? The degradation isn't that bad. It's over 120 degrees Fahrenheit outside over here. I leave them in a big pile. The batteries are getting rained on during the winter. And I keep them at 100% state of charge, and the degradation is not that bad. Even if it's shaded in this desert climate with my gate opener battery, we only recorded 4% degradation in the worst climate possible being held at 100% state of charge. It's not that bad. So again, don't be scared of it. The only way I actually see people killing these is because they're neglecting them and they're not charging them enough. So my recommendation still stands. Charge to 100%. Don't be scared to discharge to 0%, especially with how these batteries work and degrade over time. And if you're storing them, you need to check on them. That's
Damn,
it.
this guy's
Also,
holding me
don't
down.
overthink it. The BMS does everything. As long as you keep it charged, it will do everything for you. You don't have to sit there and check the cell voltages every single day and get 2 or 3 active balancers on there and try to modify the cycling thresholds. Forget it. Charge it to 100% and stop stressing about it. Now, if you're really worried about degradation, do a capacity test once a year and see what your batteries actually have. And you might be pleasantly surprised, especially if the batteries are being cycled inside with solar. So that's pretty much it for this video. I hope everything made sense. If you have any questions, please let me know down below, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.
Energy consumption is rising. Transmission networks are changing fast. But one critical element is being left behind.
You know, I think my battery is going bad. So what's going on? Why did my screen go black? Disconnected. Hi James, how are ya? Jameson. Earlier I was rambling about, my student. I think I'm gonna get some coffee, and then maybe 4 hours from now I'm gonna freaking take multivitamins. I think I forgot to take multivitamins yesterday. I think, but it was alright. I hope you're doing well now. Lots of water. Anyway, after hearing some things from this person, I think I'm gonna make my other inverter put it farther from the battery Yeah, I'm doing well. Thanks for asking, man. Also, someone told me not to not to feel bad that I only have one student this whole fucking week. This whole freaking week. They told me that there's only the start, blah blah blah. But, maybe I'll still look for a freaking day job. Okay, I'm gonna get some coffee when this loads. Item back. Anyway, I can't freaking imagine. I can't freaking imagine filing taxes. I freaking had one class, which is less than $1. I can't imagine filing that for tax. Filing tax for that. Freaking hell. Gotta do what we gotta do though. Every time I think something is stupid and fruitless, I think about, Sisyphus. I wish I paid more attention to that story when I was younger. I would have stopped being a miserable person. Instead of being negative, instead of thinking negatively about everything. Anyway, the forecast said that it was gonna be cloudy today, but right now it's pretty sunny and I love it. And of course I love it. Because I'm running on solar. What am I gonna do today on Genshin? Of course. I still haven't ridden my bike. I mean, I should really replace the inner tube, but I haven't. Meanwhile, the other one, it's gonna be almost 2 years. But I think it's still okay. I didn't see the cat today. Meow 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 meow. I think I gotta get down from the cliff. Where is it? Oh man, is it like underground? I think it's underground. Ain't nobody got time for that. Man. I gotta be up by 9 a.m. tomorrow. I mean, I would already be up. Meow, 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 meow.
You've been a naughty boy. Incoming. Hey! Calm down. Let's sparkle. No, he might feel a little sick. Nice and spicy. Get to the chase. Wait a downpour. Nothing will get done until it clears. Let this be a lesson to those who yesterday said I'll do
Meow,
it
meow, meow, meow,
tomorrow.
meow, 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 meow.
With sword comes shadow. Loba, get them! Speed of light.
Try not to enjoy it.
Incoming. Nowhere to hide. Speed of light. Hey! Blitz. Incoming. Nice and clear. Here.
Very quiet. Wow, I'm doing fine, thanks for asking. Hello. I don't really recognize you, bro. But thanks for dropping by. Yeah, it's pretty quiet. I'm done rambling.
You're in for a little shock. You've been a naughty boy.
I gotta be on standby for work tonight.
Cut to the chase.
Maybe I can listen to music or listen to stories.
Come a little closer.
Get them! Don't blink! Hey!
Surrender, Norwegian.
Nice and spicy! Hey, yeah!
Hup, you.
Wow, that was very helpful. Nice.
Try not to.
Nowhere to hide.
You're in for a little shock. Let's
see.
No, there's a renovation outside.
Add up.
Yo, that's pretty expensive for me. I'm gonna do some soldering later. Maybe 4.3. Excuse me.
Let's roll.
Meow meow. Meow meow. Meow meow.
Are you okay?
Yes. Hi, Goldie. Meow meow. Meow 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 meow.
Why is my battery already at 5%? I only made toast. If your solar battery drains quickly, it usually comes down to one of these scenarios. Your battery is too small for your home needs. Watch my other video on how to calculate the right size battery for you. You're using too much power at once. You'll be
Sagad ka na? Kaya pa? Kakayanin! May ilalakas ka pa sa tulong ng bagong Revicon! Mas pinalakas with 5 times more amino acids! The Strongman's Multivitamin, all new Revicon!
I was losing over 500 watts a day, and I didn't even realize it. And what made it worse is I thought everything was turned off. I didn't think I was using any power at all. But the real issue was sitting right here the whole time. In off-grid setups like mine, you get used to really keeping a close eye on your power. it becomes part of your routine. Checking batteries, checking solar, just keeping an eye on everything. But when I first started off-grid, I started noticing something a little bit weird. Hello, precious. Some days the battery would be lower than I expected, even when I didn't feel like I had used that much power. And that got me thinking, where's the power actually going here? Hey, buddy. What a nice day today. Being very fashionable today with my pants tucked into my socks. It is tick season. I've just been picking them off Kaya like crazy. I used to think power only really disappeared when something big was running, like heaters, kettles, power tools, that kind of thing. But that's not really how it works, because the inverter itself, it uses power just to stay on, even when nothing is plugged into it. And depending on the inverter, that idle draw can actually add up over time. A regular pure sine wave inverter is typically around 15 to 24 watts of idle draw. And over a full day, that can add up to about 576 watt hours. If you're using a 100 amp battery, this one's 150 amps. That's an awful lot of power. Now, the Pro Series version changes that a bit. It's still around 15 to 20 watts in normal idle, but it also has this eco sleep mode where it can drop below 10 watts when nothing is really happening. And that brings the daily usage down significantly depending on how much it's sitting idle. So that's literally half the power just sitting idle and only about a quarter tank of a 100 amp battery. And the best part about this is that you don't have to do anything. It's happening on its own. With this thing, if you want to save power, you literally have to turn it off. With this, it automatically drops into that eco sleep mode and saves you power over the long run. Ugh. Imagine having a light bulb on for 24 hours a day. Maybe it's in your basement at home and you don't think about it and it's really not, consuming that much power. But over the long term, if you calculate that power over a weekly, monthly, annual use, that's actually a significant amount of power that it's using. And that's exactly what's happening with your inverter. So this basically chips in, it does a little bit of extra work for you and says, yeah, when I don't see a lot of power being consumed, I drop myself down to this nice resting mode, and that's all we're going to consume. And we're just going to sip away and not guzzle, because guzzling is never a good idea. So this is the Renogy 2000 watt pure sine wave Pro Series inverter. For context, pure sine wave just means that it produces clean, stable power that's safe for electronics like laptops, chargers, CPAP machines, and most electronic gear you might have inside your cabinet. But the real difference compared to a standard inverter is what happens when there's no load. Now, let's be clear here. This is not actually sleeping. It's not going entirely to zero. It's still consuming power, but not like a regular power inverter. It also has Bluetooth monitoring, so you can actually see what the system is doing in real time instead of guessing. Another reason...
Yo, what are you doing? I might have to put you on timeout, man.
The reason why you might be looking at this is it also has this pretty cool UPS feature, which basically helps the system switch between power sources automatically.
We ain't gonna keep it PG, rated G. And we gotta abide by the rules of YouTube. So if you're gonna cause trouble, I might have to put you on timeout. I know that you're better than that, I don't have to do that. Right? I know you're better than that. And it's so unnecessary. So yeah, I'm gonna remove your comment because it's not very good, man. Come on. I don't have to put you on timeout. I know you're better than that.
Certain setups. I'm not going to overcomplicate this part. If you're interested in that type of thing, there are other videos with smarter people explaining this. So I've got the inverter hooked up to a 12-volt battery. Just go over the basics here, negative to negative, positive to positive. You do want to use a fuse with this. This is a 2,000 watt inverter. With any inverter, be safe, use a fuse. With a 2,000 watt inverter, you want to step up a little bit, 250 amps, you'll be safe. But I'm not going to be running anything over 1,000 watts here. I'm just going to plug in the CPAP machine. The CPAP machine is one of my most important tools here, of course. And there we go, that's the power. So I'll be able to sleep tonight.
May magic ang kamay ni Mommy. Pagkahaplos, bumubuti po ang ubo at sipon ko.
Hindi ito magic. It's Vicks Vapor Rub. Ihaplos sa dibdib para sa ubot sipon at sa likod para sa sakit ng katawan. Haplos ng Vicks, all night ginhawa.
Oops. All right, let's be honest.
Hi, I'm Clark on Temptress. Today we're going to talk about how to fix a battery that's gone bad or get one ready for peak performance. We're going to talk about how to do cell balancing on a battery that's already assembled. I had this battery sent to me by a company asking me to do a review. It doesn't work well. Have a look at the draw. The cells just aren't what they need to be able to even really use the battery. And the internal balancing procedure, either I can't figure it out or it doesn't work. I'm not really doing a review on this video. I won't even mention the name of the company. But if you ever found yourself having a battery that is grossly out of balance, which this one is, and you can't even charge it properly. And once you see this video, you realize if you attempt to charge it properly, you will probably harm the cells over time. This would be how you can fix that. It's something you shouldn't need. If you had this battery shipped to you, you would ship it back to them. But as the battery ages, these things could happen. And, it's nice to know what you can do. The downside is, to do this, I'm going to have to pop the case open. So, that's the problem with these cases that are glued shut. Let's get into what's going on, what the symptoms are, and then how we're going to fix it. When we're done, I'm fully expecting this is going to be a nice, usable battery. Okay, this battery arrived. Just to get all the complaining out, it has this little vent. Look at that vent. If you're like me and you like to fiddle with things, you might twist it. Well, there's a nut on the bottom. Now that it fell inside the case, I can't secure the vent. So when we're done, we'll put the nut back on it. We'll find it in there. I really wish they would have put a little bit of glue on the nut so that wouldn't have happened. But that's me fiddling with the battery. If you buy this battery, don't fiddle with that. So the problem with the battery. When the batteries arrived, they're about half charged. And I put my bank manager on them so I could charge them up to full. And then I have a whole procedure, and I have a lot of review videos. You can go through what I do if you're interested there. This didn't pass the first test. The bank manager could not finish charging this battery. It charged it, and when it got up to 13.7 volts, which it felt the battery wasn't fully charged yet, the battery itself shut off. Why that is a lithium iron phosphate battery of groups of cells in parallel. And each one is a little over 3 volts, so we get a little over 12 volts. They have a working limit. And the idea is they should all be charged to exactly the same level so they all come up together. Because when you charge them, the voltage goes up very slowly. I'm going to try to make a little graph. And then when it gets to fully charged, it does this hockey stick, we call it. It's got that shape. It'll go up and voltage really fast. Now, if you had 3 batteries that were at 50% charge, one cell, I should have said cells, one cell pair or group that was at 80% charge, as soon as you put 20% in, the 80% batteries are going to go up into the hockey stick and their voltage is going to start rising. But the others are still down here in the flat area and they'll have a low voltage. All these batteries have what's called a BMS, and we'll see that later, but it's an electronic circuit inside. And its main job, its main reason for existing, is to watch all the cell voltages of all the groups of cells. And if any of them get out of spec, to shut down the battery. Because if you try to charge too far, you will immediately destroy these cells. So what we have here is a situation where one set of cells is coming up to voltage faster. That's all we really know now. It's probably because the cells are just not set up at the same state of charge, but it could be that these cells are actually not functioning as well and they have a lower capacity. So of course, if these were 100 amp, 80 amp, 100 amp, 100 amp, the 80 amp would charge first and discharge first. I'm really hoping that's not the case because then I really won't have a video. But we're gonna at least get them top balanced and then we're gonna play with it and figure it out. How do I know they're out of balance? I haven't opened the case yet. How do I know it? Well, the first way I know it is because the battery shut off at a very low voltage. It shut off at 13.7 volts. The only reason it shuts off is because one of the cell groups is too high, so I know that it's out of balance. By rights, and there's certain little variability in this. Sometimes the BMSs are set for different numbers, but most of the time, a perfectly balanced battery, if you charge it hard and keep it going and keep going, it'll shut itself down at 14.6 volts. Well, that's a long way from 13.7. The other way I know is this battery has about every bell and whistle you can imagine. It has a BMS that is a Bluetooth radio. So I can use my phone with their app, and the BMS in there actually tells my phone the individual voltages of all the cells. So I get to see what's going on. Now, if you know about BMSs or you've read about BMSs, you know that one of their jobs is to balance the cells. And I gave this every opportunity to balance. Unless it has a secret formula of how to turn on the balance, it should have done something. I hooked this to my regulated power supply and I repeatedly discharged and recharged it near the top. I also held it at just below where it would shut off, which isn't particularly healthy for that higher cell, but you know, I wanted to give it every opportunity, and honestly, I didn't want to have to open the case. So I held it for 5 days at 13.687, just below anyway, whatever the magic number was. And I carefully watched the difference between the high voltage cells and the lower voltage cells. And I wasn't seeing any change. It should be discharged in the highs so that the lows have a chance to come up. And it just wasn't happening. And my God, 5 days, if it's not going to fix it, in 5 24-hour days, it probably isn't going to fix it. One more thing we're going to do with this battery today, I fully expect, because I've lost confidence with that BMS being able to balance. And you know what? Most of these BMSs you find in the budget batteries don't balance very fast. They're what's called a passive balancer. We're going to install an active balancer. I mean, I had the case open, I might as well. So we're going to go into this particular device. I've had some good luck with this. They are crazy inexpensive. They have upsides and downsides, as almost everything coming out of production nowadays have. But if you understand them, I think this can be a very useful deal. And when I say crazy cheap, I think they're like $6. So I have done everything that I feel and I can come up with to diagnose and fix this from the outside. All the really interesting stuff is on the inside, so we're going to dive into this battery and we're going to figure out what's going on. To do that, I had to crack it open. I usually show that on video, but today I'm not. It's a crappy day outside, so it'll just magically be open. Well, these things put up a battle. This one put up a particular battle, hence the change of shirt. But it's open. And look what we've got. We got a lot going on. You know, I hope I can get this one going, because this battery has like every bell, every whistle, internal heating, everything. It's a pretty expensive battery. And honestly, it doesn't look like they cut a lot of corners. I'm impressed with this anti-chafe, I assume, tape over all the wires. There's a lot going on that honestly, at first glance, I don't even know what it is. There's boards all over the place, but we'll figure it all out. Now, our goal here is to get to the terminals that are on this side of the battery somehow, and then we're going to be able to analyze these individual 100 amp hour cells, find out which one's out of whack, and force it into whack with pretty simple electrical tools, a resistor and a couple pieces of wire. But before I show you my trick, I got to make this safe. So I'm going to tear down the big power wires. Mostly once I remove this one, then there won't be a big negative, and everything is safe to touch. If you take a battery apart, you notice my watch is off now, no metal on you, no wedding rings that aren't, you know, ours are safe. Here I go. Well, this was a bigger challenge than I thought it was going to be. Wet shirt again, but this time it's because I got rained on. I dug and dug and dug, and I finally just had to cut the end of the case off because we need to get to the tops of the cells. So there's a little plastic cover on them now, and I'm going to very carefully cut that off because metal tools in here can be real bad. Let's see what we find. So these are the tops of the cells. There's 4 cells. 4 100 amp hour cells, and this would be the negative of the lowest cell, the positive, which is, they're in series, so this is connected to the negative of the next cell, that's its positive, to the negative of the next, that's its positive, negative of the next, and then finally the positive that leaves the battery. Let's see what we find. We're not going to find a lot right now, but we're going to learn. 13.26. That's a good number for a fully charged lithium. let's look at all the cells now. This cell is 3.312. I'm reversing the probe, so forget the negative sign. 312. 314. And 312. So, I'm off by 2/100ths of a volt. What's the big deal, Clark? There's no big deal. When the batteries are in their level voltage area, it doesn't really matter if they're like 10% more charged or not. They're going to have kind of the same voltage. To really see what's going on, we have to keep pushing them until some of the cells start going up that ramp. So we're going to put a charger on it, and we're going to watch the cell voltages and see what happens. Okay, I got the charge going, and I have to watch this now. So really carefully watch this. In fact, occasionally I'm going to move my meter and look at the individual cells and keep an eye on this. I'm not going to bore you with the whole time, but I'm probably going to spend half hour, 20 minutes getting this battery fully charged again so the cells started going out of whack. I'm bypassing the BMS. Because I'm bypassing the BMS, there's no guy over here that's watching for one cell going too high. So if I walk away, I could cause a cell to vent. If you do this yourself, remember, you're in charge now. But the first step is to get all the cells charged up until that one cell starts going up too much. I'll see you in just a bit.
Na-receive ko na ang paboritong food ko at may discount pa. Kita niyo ba kung gaano ako ka-excited? Syempre! I-download na ang Food Panda today!
Meow meow meow.
Well, been doing this for a little while. I've been watching what's going on.
Guys, you know what? I think that my solar battery is finally failing after all these months. It's running out very quickly. So, I cannot stream for very long anymore. I'm hoping that it's just unbalanced instead of the possibility that there's really something wrong with it. Like if one of the cells are failing or if the battery management system is failing. I just hope that it's imbalanced.
Okay, at this point, the battery is fully charged. We're at 100%, the charge is off. I'll go into the parameters, set the status to...
Well done guys, thank you. Alright YouTube, I'm gonna go now. Just a reminder. Stand by for work. Bye bye, YouTube. I cannot stream the same time tomorrow. Okay, bye bye.